Sutton, Uncle
Yes.
Brad, I feel like a proud parent. I am so happy. We've come a long way to when I first brought this cocktail up into conversation. It might have even been 2 seasons ago. I am so happy that we're covering the 20th century finally, because I think not only was it my favorite for so long, I just want everybody to experience it. I really and truly think that this is a fantastic cocktail to know how to make, to understand balance and trust in a recipe.
Trust.
Because I think that this, and Brad, I think the same holds true for you. I think the ingredients scare people.
Yeah, it absolutely scares people. And you see white creme de cacao in a recipe, and you're like, oh, this is going to be gross.
With lemon juice, you're like,
With
what?
well, yeah, the lemon juice part, like I wouldn't be able to get past the white creme de cacao. Just assuming that, ew. And by the way, let's talk about creme de cacao for a second. It is not cream. Creme is a French word that refers to like the texture, right? It's like it's a silky texture. So creme, when you hear creme, it's not cream. Either way, I probably actually would be more inclined to try it if it's like cream of the cacao.
Is that clarified? Yeah.
But it's an interesting cocktail, but one that I literally really love. And people often add a Lillet Blanc instead of because they think, well, if you see Lillet in the recipe, the old school recipe, they must be talking about Lillet Blanc. Well, really, they're talking about Quina Lillet, and Coqui Americano is the closest thing to that. So, my recipe and recipes I've seen and trust, Coqui Americano is the way to go. You got your gin, you got your creme de cacao, and you got your lemon juice, and that's it. You don't have any simple syrup because the creme de cacao replaces that simple syrup. You don't need simple syrup.
No. I think that this is such a good showcase of balance, and once it'll really help you understand, like, wow, really, if I do measure these correctly and I follow the recipe, this tastes fantastic. And I will say, I too, like you, Brad, I remember seeing this. The first time I ever had it was Dante's in New York, and they have a martini hour, which, by the way, come on, if you don't know by now, Dante has the best happy hour in New York City. I think from 3 to 4, or maybe it's 3 to 5. They have $10 martinis. It's a martini hour. So it must be 3 to 4. $10 martinis. You don't get that in New York City. So they have the best martini hour. And Eric and I, when we would go and visit New York, we'd always go to the Dante's. I mean, we're going to go again the next time we go. But during their martini hour, I wanted to get something I hadn't tried before. And I remember seeing this 20th century. And I'm like, 20th century white creme de cacao? Why is this in the martini section? What is this? So I don't even think I ordered it. I think Eric actually ordered it. And I was like, we're swapping. This is mine. It was so shocking how delicious and surprising this cocktail was. I can never thank Dante enough. Whoever Dante is, thank you. Because you were the first bar, frankly, to show me this cocktail. And I kid you not, Brad, I think you're the same way. Once you taste it, you're like, dude, what was I thinking this was crazy town? Because it's not.
Yeah. It's not. I am upset with myself that I have prejudged this cocktail for so long in my life. I have not given it a fair chance. This is not right. And I've made mistakes before. This is one of them. Yeah, huge fan. This cocktail.
Yeah, I remember you saying, like, yeah, Jules, we'll get to it. Yeah, I'll make that someday. Yeah. Now the time has come.
It has come, and I'm telling you, this belongs on your bar cart, because you're going to make this drink, and somebody is going to be like, oh my God, what is that? What am I tasting right now? And it's just such a balanced cocktail. It is such a great cocktail,
it's
you guys.
Also great, too, if you're on that argument of, no, I don't care, Jules and Brad. I don't care how much you tell me. I don't like gin. This is a great cocktail to try with gin. It's so, just trust us. If you're teetering on the gin train, try this cocktail. I would be so taken back if it didn't convert you with this one.
Yeah. If it doesn't convert you and you're like, I still hate gin after drinking this cocktail,
gonna find
and
one
you used a
then.
proper gin, right? Don't go
Yeah,
using
right.
the bad stuff.
Yeah.
I will eat my hat. I will buy that bottle of gin. I'm kidding.
I
I'm not
will
going to buy that
knock on
bottle
your
of gin.
front door. Okay, so Brad, so we're going to cover, obviously, clearly, the 20th century classic cocktail. I'm making a riff on it. It is called the 19th century. We're then going to get into the history of the 20th century and where the name came from, because it's really fun. Guys, if you're listening, all the men out there, maybe some ladies, if you like trains, stick around. And then we go into a question that Sips with Sav had for us, which was really fun. So,
Sorry. What did you
What?
say? Ladies, if you like trains, stick around.
well, I said gentlemen, and then I was like, well, I
Oh.
guess there's ladies out there who
Yeah,
like
yeah.
trains. I don't know. It's personally not me, but I know guys have like a thing for, moving vehicles more so than I feel like
Yes.
women. So I just wanted to be
Okay.
inclusive.
Yeah,
For
no,
me.
hey, listen. Great. Yep. We just
Yep,
move on.
yep.
It's fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So then at the end, we go through your get featured questions with Sips with Sav. And that one was really fun. So again, we said it at the end. We'll say it again right now. Please go and ask your questions. We love doing it. It might be our favorite new thing that we're doing now. But that's our episode. I think it's
Yeah.
going to be a fun one. Good recipes to try. It's not brain surgery. It's not rocket science. You don't have to get crazy ingredients. And you can make this weekend. So, Brad?
Let's get to it. I'm getting thirsty.
All right. Let's do it. Brad, I am so excited for this one. It's like a dream come true.
Yeah. I know. I know you were bugging me for a long time to try this drink, and I have been drinking it, and it is like, again, we said at the beginning, like, this is a tough one on paper, and you look at it and you're like, there's no way this is going to taste good. And let me tell you, you can't always judge a book by its cover.
I know. So I'm so excited to watch you make this. I see you got the Sipsmith gin out, so I know we're already off to a good start.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have a high quality creme de cacao, which isn't necessarily something you can really find that easily out there.
Yeah.
They are out there. Even like bowls. I was trying to find bowls, white creme de cacao, and I was striking out. But I do have some other stuff, which, I was making these last night for me and my wife, and she's like, whoa, what is this program? It's good. Now, here's the thing I'll tell you about this cocktail and why you shouldn't be scared. You see white creme de cacao, and you're like, ew, it's going to be too sweet. Not the case at all. In fact, if your 20th century is chocolate forward, you are doing it wrong. You should almost barely notice it's there until the end. Like literally, that's the deal. Okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this is just such an elegant, interesting gin sour. And sour is not even the right word because it's totally balanced. Like this is an awesome cocktail. So let's get into making it. Okay. So I've got my equipment here, my Hawthorne strainer and my double strainer, or my fine mesh strainer, and I've got my 2818 shaker. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some gin in. So 1/4 ounce of Sipsmith gin is a favorite of mine. So in that goes. And then I've got 3/4 ounce of white creme de cacao. In that goes. And then I've got 3/4 ounce of Coqui Americano. Now, people are like, oh, isn't it Lillet Blanc? And it's like, no. I mean, again, I go back to these old recipes, and when they say Lillet, they were talking about Lillet Quina Lillet.
Right.
Coqui Americano is the closest thing we have to Quina Lillet, and I've had it both ways. I love you, people at Lillet. There are lots of great reasons to drink your beautiful, beautiful, beautiful spirit. Or beverage, but I am just a huge fan of Coqui Americano. It just works so well in this drink. So that went in there, and then we've got 3/4 ounce of fresh squeezed lemon juice, and then I'm going to add a couple of dabs of the old saline solution.
Oh,
in you go.
classy.
All right, that's in there. I've got cracked ice in my shaking tin. Together, nice and cold. 30 seconds. Shook its brains out. All right, here we go. So now I've got my Hawthorne strainer on my shaker. I am going to take the very special
Look at
Hawks
that beautiful
crystal.
glass. Wow.
My wife knew I was doing this. She'd be like, "You're using the what glasses?" Hawks Crystal.
Don't tell
Old
her.
school. I like it. Avant-garde looking, right? Or avant-garde, Art Deco. In the glass it goes. Yummy, yummy. Here we go. And enter the music.
Oh,
Let's get
yeah.
this thing apart. Ooh, not a big fan of this shaking tin. It really likes to stick.
Yeah.
Come on, you son of a bitch.
You son of a.
God.
But I can see how cold you got it from over here. You shook the shit out of that thing.
And finish off with a little lemon twist. The cacao is there, but it's not a chocolate bomb. It's just like this interesting flavor that pairs so well with the lemon and the gin.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, I think that this cocktail is one of the ones where you can really, if you're like, what do you mean? What does a balanced cocktail mean? What do you mean when you say that? Make this cocktail, because this is a definition of balance. If you have the right amount, because if you go overboard on the cacao, maybe do a taste test of one that's like off the walls, wrong measurements, and then have it. You can tell how perfectly well these flavors all meld together when measured correctly. It's like literally so perfect. I love this cocktail so much because it adds an interesting, Brad, I think you were saying in one of the other episodes, you don't love the tart. I think the cacao plays with that tartness so well that it mellows it almost.
Well, this isn't even tart. I mean, this is tart like
Right.
like a glass of lemonade. Like that's it's so balanced and so well. And you just literally you're like, what is that flavor? You're like, oh, that's chocolate, but it's just so subtle.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just this is a magic cocktail. It's
Yeah,
too
and
bad.
by the way,
It's too bad it's
those
not more
listening,
popular.
I know those listening, it is white creme de cacao. I've gotten a lot of questions of, could I use,
Nope.
dark chocolate? No, it has to be white creme de cacao.
Yeah. And don't make this mistake I made. I went out and bought this creme de cacao from Tempest, and it is so freaking good, but it's a dark. And I was like, oh, because I've heard nothing but awesome things about this. And I mean, again, they didn't even sponsor, but I went and bought it, and I was like, holy crap, that is good. Like, I would just drink this for dessert.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Jules. Well, let's see what you got. We're
My
talking
turn?
about
Okay.
what are we talking about here? 19th century?
Yeah, so I really wanted to riff first, which, by the way, if you're making this and you want to do it this way, I highly recommend it. But I thought it was too easy. Switch the gin for mezcal. Mezcal almost complements chocolate so well that mixing that, it works wonders. It's fantastic. It's beautiful. It's delicious. But I was like, really, we're just going to do a classic spirit switch. Let's come on, kick it up a notch. And so in my research, there's a couple of different variations. There's a 21st century that uses tequila, and then I saw this 19th century that uses not only bourbon but Lillet Rouge, which I happen to have. And I'm like, listen, everybody knows if you open a bottle of Lillet, whether it's Rouge or Blanc, if it's open, you got to use it. So I was like, perfect, let's use the Rouge. So we're making the 19th century, and it is almost exactly the same as Brad's. What I'm going to do, since I have it already juiced here, and then instead of gin, we're doing 1.5 ounces of bourbon. And then we're doing 3/4 ounce of creme de cacao. I, like you, Brad, I don't have a great one. I can't wait to go and invest, because I love this cocktail enough that I need to invest in a good white creme de cacao.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was looking up good creme de cacaos, and Bowles does make the list. I think it's Gifford that made #1, but that was hard to find.
Yeah. I saw that. Yeah.
So
okay, 3/4 ounce Lillet Rouge. And if you are classy AF like Brad, you'd add a little drops of saline or a pinch of salt. But then you just give that a little shakeroonie. Woo! My hands are getting too cold, so that means we're good to go.
Too cold to hold. There you go.
Nick and Nora. It's filled with ice and water. I'm gonna pour that out. Got my
I need
glass.
some Nick and Nora's. Take your time. We'll edit it out.
Little Nikki.
Oh, Nikki 6.
All right.
Is that
and
a
then
6
we're
ouncer?
going to double
That
strain.
should call it like if that's a 6 ounce glass, you got to call that Nikki 6.
Nikki
Do you know
6?
what that is?
I think it is. Garnish this with a little twisty on the side, and you will have a 19th century.
19th century. Cheers. How are you? Cheers.
This is so similar and so different at the same time. I will say I think I prefer, if I had to taste test, which I wish I was right now, I still think I like the 20th century better. I would like to try this with a split base of the rye. I think the bourbon comes through a little sweet. Just based off this recipe, I would probably cut it with something a little bit drier, so it's not as. But man, I kid you not, I love white creme de cacao in cocktails. Like, it is a new level unlocked.
Totally.
So
And like,
good.
even if you have stuff that's, kind of like, a little further down the chain on when you think of elegance or refinement, said differently, cheap white creme de cacao, it's still okay. Like, it's just like, it's a sweetener. Yeah. So don't like stress if you've got, a bottle of Phillips sitting around or whoever makes the other ones. But so I'm with you. Again, lemon and bourbon, not my favorite combination, but that's me.
I know,
that's me.
yeah.
I know you love it. So
Stick with a gin, or honestly, try it with that mezcal, because mezcal and chocolate, just oh my god, those two together.
Yeah,
I know
they are. Yeah.
So really, you got like 3 recipes in one.
Yeah. Hey,
and I highly suggest you taste them all.
Bonus episode today.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get to the story behind this drink.
Yeah, I don't know it, so I'm excited to learn. It's my favorite.
Cool.
Got to know the history.
Well, here we go.
I think that if anybody has a favorite cocktail, it's almost homework and super important to do. You have to know the history behind the cocktail. So this is one of I will say, Brad, mine has changed as we get into spring, but the last couple of months, the 20th century has been my freaking cocktail, and I don't know the history.
Yeah.
Do we have a good history with this one today?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. At first I was a little bit like, oh, but then I started kind of digging. I was like, oh yeah, no, this is cool. This is cool. So we kind of we'll talk a bit about the drink and just kind of maybe the fact that it's just been really absent. It's really kind of an obscure cocktail. We'll talk about who invented it, where, and then also where the cocktail got its name. And that's probably my favorite part is where the cocktail got its name.
I have to assume it's something fun.
Yeah. So let's dig in here. All right. So the drink first appeared when how old do you think this drink is?
Well, you have Lillet.
Lately.
Yeah, you have Lillet, and you're telling me earlier, you maybe have given it away. Lillet Quina is supposed to be the original ingredient.
Right. So I think that's pre-1985 at this point.
I was going to say 65 this was created.
Okay. That's a solid guess. It was actually invented in the 30s, and it first appeared in print in 1937 in the Café Royal cocktail book, which was a collection of cocktail recipes that were popular in London at the time. Mm-hmm. Now, this book, should you find one or happen to have one, consider yourself very lucky because it only went to print once. Like, it went through one run.
Oh, wow.
And then it didn't make it back into print until they did a facsimile print of it in 2008. So you can pick that up on Amazon, right? And that's like $17 to $30. And actually, reading the reviews, I kind of want to, like, I did. I bought the book. I'm waiting for it to arrive. But, like, yeah, I guess all the drinks in there are pretty good and palatable, according to one
the 20th
reviewer.
century rocks.
Yeah, I know, right? So, all right. So, anyways, after the recipe first appeared in 37, the cocktail just disappeared. It never made it back to print. Mm-hmm. And that's likely because that creme de cacao, that white creme de cacao, just throws people off, right?
Sure.
So it didn't reappear. Well, it did come back in the 60s. The inventor of the drink did produce his own book and put it in there. But then it really didn't come back into print until 2004 when Ted Hay, also known as Dr. Cocktail, published a book called Vintage Spirits and Forgotten Cocktails. Now, let me tell you something about this book. You know, people have asked me before, what got you into cocktails? And like when I read this story about it not coming back until Ted Hay, it's like it sparked a memory for me, and this is it. So I've always been into, you know, spirits, right? My dad was a bartender, and I got into cocktails probably when we had some friends over back in like the mid 2000s, and my buddy Dave Johannes, like he made a bunch of craft cocktails, names I'd never really heard of, like the Boulevardier and things like that. Yeah. I'm like, well, that was pretty awesome. But it was such a, like, how do you even know how to make that, right? Like you know, like just to look that stuff up, I wouldn't even know what to look for.
Right.
Then we had an engagement party for your cousin Danny, and her husband's parents gave me this book as a housewarming gift or a host gift. And so I've got this book now, this Vintage Spirits and Forgotten Cocktails book, and I'm looking through it and I'm like, oh my God, these are some of the drinks that we were drinking, you know, a while ago. Like, holy crap, this is amazing. And then we went out to dinner with Terrence and Steven, and T ordered an aviation cocktail. And I'm like, hey, I remember seeing that in the book. Like, what's that like? And I tried it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, this is like freaking delicious. Like, what's in it? Oh, creme de violet. What's that? Like, man, it was
started firing. Yeah.
It was the tinder, the match, and the flame that just kind of burst this passion.
Ratatouille eating the cheese and the strawberry together, and you had all of these little flavor wheels going around in your brain.
Oh my God, I was just like pow, 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 all these fireworks going on in my head.
Yeah.
So that's like that book, that Vintage Spirits and Forgotten Cocktails, like that book is so close to my heart. Now, not every drink in there is great, but it's it goes into the history, like everything I love, awesome. Right, about this. All right, so who invented the drink? So the inventor is a guy by the name of C.A. Tuck, and he is a Brit, and he, I believe, because it's not really clear when you read all the other history out there, but I got a hold of his cocktail book. So I believe he invented it while he was at the Buttery Bar, which is such a funny Buttery Bar. Hey, you slip right off the stool. The Buttery Bar at the Hyde Park Hotel in London. And that's based upon the foreword in his book called Cocktails and Mixed Drinks, which was actually published in 1967. So just to be clear on timeline, the drink first appeared in 37,
right? Didn't
appear again, and then the inventor Tuck puts it out in his book in 67. So
okay, so I was I was there.
Yeah,
I was close.
Yeah. That's why I said good. That was a solid guess. So he mentions opening up the Buttery Bar some years, air quote, before the last war. Now he's in England. The last war was World War II. Yeah. And he also, before he worked at the Buttery Bar, opened that place up, he was in Cairo. And the writer of the Café Royale book, which is William Tarling, was a London-based bartender as well. He worked at the Piccadilly, and Piccadilly and Hyde Park are like a short walk from each other. So no doubt, right? Like no doubt that this guy was the inventor, and he collected this recipe from him. Interesting story about actually Tarling is that he not only was the writer of the Café Royale, but he actually founded the UKBG, which is the UK Bartenders Guild. Okay. And then he co-founded the IBA, which is the International Bartenders Association. The IBA is the one that makes an official list of cocktails, which is a codified list of a limited number of cocktails based on the most popular cocktails bartenders are making in each country. So if you ever want to see like an interesting list of cocktails, go to the IBA. It's not a very big list. Like those are the drinks that we should all know how to make, right? And actually we've checked off a lot of them.
Thank gosh.
All right. So Tarling invented it, or I'm sorry, Tarling wrote about it. Tuck invented it. Where did it get its name?
Yeah.
And this is where I'm kind of like, yeah, man, I like this. All right. So the story goes, the drink was named after, what do you think? What do you think?
Maybe
I don't think you're going to get it right, but I'm just asking. What'd you say?
A train?
Now what? How did you know that?
I think I don't know. And I don't know if it was, maybe I asked the first time because the first time I had this was at Dante's in New York bar. And I might have asked, like, where the hell did this come from? So I'm like, 20th century, I'm thinking train. It's giving train. Yeah, based on my memory.
It gave train. You're right.
Yeah.
So this was, in fact, named for a train.
Damn.
And the train was not just any train, man. This was the world famous 20th Century Limited. And this was an express train that ran from Grand Central Station in New York to LaSalle Street in Chicago. And you could get there in about 16 hours, right? It started at 20, got it down to 16 as trains got faster.
Yeah, that was progressive, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and this train ran from 1902 to 1967. The drink came out in 37, right? Mm-hmm. This train was called the Train of Tycoons and Stars. It ran nightly between these two destinations. And if you ever wondered where the phrase "the red carpet treatment" came from, this is it.
Really?
Yeah. The train was luxurious, opulent, and if you boarded in New York, and only in New York, they would roll out a football-sized carpet, this red crimson carpet out in front of the train, and passengers would walk the red carpet in and into their respective cars.
Damn. Trains were pretty elegant back then.
Oh my God, so elegant. Yeah. So passengers would board the train, porters would help them get settled in, and then the passengers would saunter on down to the observation car, where they would with their cocktails, and then they would have cocktails in the observation car, and then they would go have dinner in the dining car, which is called the Century Club car. And they would sit down and enjoy their dinner, and with views of the Hudson River as they traveled along, they called it water level, along the Hudson River and Great Lakes. So menus on this train included caviar, filet mignon, lobster, and bartenders were in 3 different club cars, and they were taking orders for Manhattans and Scotch highballs and dry martinis. Yeah. And after a nightcap, you would head down to your room, right, your private room, and you would get a good night's rest and then have breakfast in bed, or walk down to the dining car and have breakfast there. By 8:45 a.m., you would arrive in Chicago, totally well rested, and go do your thing in Chicago, or connect to another train to go someplace else. What a way to freaking travel, right?
Oh yeah.
And this train
so elegant.
Oh, I know. It's just you can and it's all Art Deco inside, just beautiful, elegant. So the train would often carry wealthy passengers like Robert McCormick, Betty Davis, Marshall Field, Doris Day, Walter Chrysler, Bing Crosby. And, the waiters, man, top notch, right? High end. They kept meticulous notes on guests. For example, notes would say that Marshall Field would order 1 martini, but expected to find 2 in the shaker. Right?
Yeah.
Bing Crosby liked his wheat cakes piping hot in the morning, and McCormick wanted apple pie a la mode. They knew their customers because they were also frequent travelers.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Although not when the drink was invented, probably one of the most famous images of this 20th century train is, and I wonder if you can guess this. Can you see this train in your mind's eye?
No.
So think of kind of old school Art Deco, but futuristic, right? A long cylindrical engine with that one light on the end, and it's got that sleek cow catcher plow thing on the front of it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, with the big wheels, and it's racing down the line.
Only thing I can think of when I think of a train is Harry Potter, but I mean,
oh sure,
I think I'm kind of putting the piece together.
Yeah. So I think maybe even the Coors Light train might be it. I don't know. I might be wrong, but I'm thinking
I'm not
the
a
Coors
train
Light
guy,
train that
but I appreciate them. Yeah.
I was a train kid, right?
So you know what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, I love trains.
I'm nice train.
I wanted to be a train conductor when I was little.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of little boys want to do that. Just ride on the front, honk the horn.
Yep.
Whatever it's called. Yeah.
Anyways, so I actually had the opportunity. So this is kind of a cool thing, and this I can picture this because I've been there, right? I've been inside this observation car that they're talking about. So a number of years ago, I was asked, and Amy with me as well, to do this trip with some friends of ours on a private train, which I'll explain in a second, that went from Minneapolis to Chicago. And the private train was just simply three private cars that were attached to the back of an Amtrak train, right? And a friend of a friend owned these cars that they would hook up to the back of this train, and then they would pay a fee, and then they would take you to Chicago. It had a dining car, like a double-decker kind of like viewing car where you could sit up top and look out the skylights and along the windows. And then they had an observation car. Oh. And this observation car, the Rat Pack used to travel in it, like Bing Crosby.
Awesome.
So I imagine, and I think this observation car may have come from the 20th century, if not something similar, but it was a Pullman. The Pullman made the 20th century train. So it was a Pullman car, so high-end, luxurious. You walk into this observation car, Jules. It is so cool.
Yeah.
So imagine this. Like, you walk in, and it's like this honey gold wood paneling in the car. Yeah. Beautiful lighting that went down the side of the car. Big windows and skylights as you walk down the car. And then in the back of the car, there was this, like, it was a rounded end. And these observation cars would sit at the back of trains because they didn't really need cabooses anymore, right? They would put these observation cars in the back. By the way, do you know the purpose of a caboose? It was protection. It was protection from train robbers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you'd walk back to the back of this observation car, and it's this like pit couch, right? That's like a half circle, table in the middle, and then like it's just encased, like surrounded by glass, and so you could look up while you're sitting back there and just see straight up or out in any direction.
That's awesome.
It was so freaking cool.
Brad, I didn't realize you liked trains so much.
Yeah, I mean, listen. Yeah, actually, I was just about to kind of clarify. No, I would totally I would do the Orient Express. I would do a train.
You're a
trip.
train
In fact,
guy.
I'd love to take a train ride from Minneapolis, like out to San Diego or out to Seattle. Something kind of cool like that. If only we
had some.
Well, you guys got trains. I could take a train. Maybe I'll meet you at Tales of the Cocktail. I'll take a train down.
You know what? Yeah, I challenge you to take the train.
I totally would. Like, I've already looked into it. It's only like $600. So I'm down. Like, and by the way, like, what a great way to travel, right? Like, getting a good night's sleep.
How funny though that you love trains so much and you've like never had this cocktail.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Wow. Shame. Well, honestly, Jules, you look at the ingredients, and I'm like, ugh.
I know.
White creme de cacao, that can't be good. Like, I'm the same way with the creme de menthe. I'm like, okay, that can't be good. It just is a little too much.
Well, because it's like it's 3/4 of an ounce. Isn't that how much you use? 3/4 in yours?
Yeah, 3/4 an ounce, but it's balanced by like there's no simple syrup in here, right?
Right.
So the lemon like takes that out of play, and so you've got a really balanced cocktail. Which, you know what? I mean, this cocktail is just elegant AF.
I told you. Imagine having a 20th century.
On the 20th
century.
Yeah. I think if that probably showed up on the train after a while. I'm sure.
Has to.
So that's the story. That's the story on the 20th century and luxury travel.
Love it.
Way back when.
Maybe we'll do a cocktail train tour.
Yeah, totally. Sure, Amtrak. Like, here's your coffee and your styrofoam cup.
God, could you imagine an Amtrak collab? That'd be fantastic.
That would be fantastic. Actually, let's bring luxury back.
Let's bring
like,
trains back.
We just did Delta One down to Peru. Like that was freaking awesome. Being up in the lay down seats. Like, yeah, man.
Oh yeah. That's next level. But bring the trains back. Then you get like a whole room.
Yep. Yeah. Give me a whole bedroom.
Yeah.
And just be rocked to sleep at like the.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah. Bring it on.
Well,
all right, Jules. We got something else going on after this.
We do. We're going to answer a question during our tip section. Somebody asked, Sips with Sav. We got a question coming up.
Awesome. Here we go. All right, Jules. This is becoming one of my favorite parts of our podcast, where we get to listener questions on the Get Featured section of on the Instagram, on the Art of Drinking podcast. So Keep asking those questions. What do you got, Jules?
Keep asking those questions. They're on the highlights on our main page. But today we have a question from Sips with Sav. I really liked this question because when I first read it, I had an answer. And then when I finished reading it, I had a second answer. So the first way I read it was this. Do you find yourself ordering more shaken or stirred cocktails? Then I read it again. Do you find yourself ordering more shaken or stirred cocktails on a night out? And see, I know, I thought that this was very interesting because the first part of the answer immediately, I was like, oh, well, I find myself ordering a stirred cocktail. I like to have them before dinner, then maybe a glass of wine at dinner, and then maybe a nightcap, another stiff drink. I love the stiff drinks right now. But on a night out, I think I would go more shaken because it's a little bit more on the, whether it's tart or refreshing. You have more dilution in there. If you're going out, I feel like, I don't know about you, Brad, but I can kind of like, I when I'm out and I'm socializing, I can drink pretty quickly. So I feel like the shaken drinks almost help me with that because depending on the ones you get, right? If they're served up, then it's the same answer that I just said. Those go down quick. But if it's one of the ones that's shaken, poured over like crushed ice or something like that, that I can, stand around, mellow, sip out of the straw then and there. So it is a very interesting question because there's like a couple of different answers to it. But Brad, what would your answers be and why for both versions of the question?
Yeah, that is a great question. And one, I know my answer to it.
Yeah.
And I would, in both occasions, I would be ordering stirred over shaken. And the reason why is this. When you're shaking a cocktail, that means citrus is present. And there's a level of trust that I need to be there to trust that this drink isn't going to blow me away with heartburn.
Right.
And it's not like I'm like some old guy who's like, oh God, I can't do that. That's going to give me the heartburn. But
Right.
I've always been like this, like too much lime juice, too much lemon juice, even orange juice. Like, I can get heartburn when you get just like too much of that stuff. It's a total risk. And so if I'm going out on if I'm going to like a night out, honestly, if I'm going for a night out, it's like, it's a highball likely, or, some type of like press, like a whiskey press or a vodka press, right? So you've got the soda water and the Sprite or the 7-Up or whatever.
Yeah.
Or a Sonic, right? Like a vodka Sonic or a gin and tonic or, whatever, right? So,
yeah.
But if I'm relaxing, right? And I want to slow play my drink because you can drink, you can slam this stuff pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I also like a stirred drink there because a spirit forward drink to me mellows in my glass and I can just slow play that, right?
It's true.
But if I'm hammering back drinks, which I haven't really done that with intention in a while.
I know.
But if I'm going to hammer back some drinks, then maybe I'm going to go with something with a little like soda water in it.
Yeah.
Which is not either one of those options.
Yeah, I will say, and it's contradicting to what I said earlier, but now that I'm thinking more and more about it, I will say, like my perfect order would be I start off with, let's just, not a night out like we're going out. Let's just say a night out, dinner, maybe a cocktail bar, whatever. So what I like to do is I like to order a shaken cocktail that's usually served up. That could be, something like the 20th century. It could be a gin, served up cocktail. I love having that, like really light, florally something.
Yeah.
Then after that, I feel like you can kind of go different ways. I think in my perfect world, I'd do a served up, I'd do a cocktail that was shaken over ice, and then I'd finish with a stirred cocktail over ice. Because that way I can kind of play out like, how am I feeling? And if I'm feeling like I need to slow down, then I can slow play this last one and make it mellow, drink my water, enjoy the conversation, and not feel like, because a lot of times if you're having a cocktail served up in a coupe glass, once it starts to get room temperature,
that's the other thing.
It changes.
Yeah.
So that's my order, right? That's how I would go about my evening ordering cocktails out.
Yeah.
Final
100%.
answer.
Okay. And so here's my final answer too. If I trust where I'm going and I trust that the drink isn't going to be out of balance, right? In favor of the citrus. I'll take out of balance in favor of the sweet because I've got a little bit of a sweet tooth. But if it's out of balance in favor of the citrus, like I'm out. Like I'm not going to do anything shaken there. Yeah. If I trust them, then I'll do a shaken cocktail to start before dinner. And that could be, if I see an aviation on the menu, I'm going right there.
God, Brad, we
right
gotta
to that
cover
aviation. That. I know. Next season, I promise we're going to cover the aviation. It's like my signature. I love this drink. Yeah. And then stirred cocktail at the end after dinner, right? It's just, then you can relax. So that's my MO.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like that. But that's your answer. We have so many more questions to answer, and I can't wait to get to as many as we can. So really and truly, please, 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 we're reading them all. Go hit that get featured, ask your questions, because we want to answer them. This is way more fun than me pulling tips that I don't even know if you guys are listening to. Like, do you guys even care about this? So this is way more fun. So go ask the questions because we want to answer them. So.
All right. Bingo.